Hello guys and girls. Last week we worked on the F-150. This week we're going to concentrate on this 1976 Mercury Marquis. It's sick, it's coughing, let's go and fix it. The problem with this 76 Mercury is that it cranks, but there is no spark and no start. So I started to investigate what's up, and then looks like I screwed it up. When I changed this vacuum advance, I moved the two cables, what goes to the that pickup, to the side, and sure enough, this star-looking thing chewed up both cables. So I just called O'Reilly's, and surprisingly, they have another one. So I'm just gonna change it, make it new again. So looks like that's gonna be an easy fix, but we need to go and get the part. This Mercury also have one of these little expanders, I don't know how you call that, the little middle part, and then the lid will go on top of that. So yeah, it should be an easy fix. So we're in O'Reilly's. I usually buy my old car parts here. They usually either have it in stock or just get it the next day. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, what's in here? Sweet. Nice. This looks brand new. I don't think it's reman, it's actually a new one. So we just need to figure out how to put that in. So there is a gear which is protected with this paper here, and it can go in many different directions. So if you look at, there is a little hole at the bottom with 6 angles, and then you have the gear. So this will have to hook up with the oil pump, and this will hook up with a camshaft. So before I put that in, I'm gonna put a little oil on it to make sure, and then a little bit oil around this rubber seal as well, so it will slide in easier. And we're gonna take off the top so we can see which way the rotor is pointing to. So I put the rotor on to see which way it's pointing to. So we really want to make sure that it's pointing to the first cylinder, and then the first cylinder is actually marked. This is the first cylinder, so we need to move it until it's pointing to the first cylinder, which is that way. And then it's also on the mark. The mark is down there, and I can't really see it, so I'm gonna have to bring a light, and then somehow I'm gonna have to be able to move that engine, so that rotor will point to the number 1 cylinder. I use the starter to move the engine around, and now if you look down in the middle, you can see the marks down there at the very bottom. There's like 2 marks on it. So that's with the pure ignition, and the top dead center is where this actually right now is showing on, which is not really marked with a highlighter. So this is where it looks like pointing at, to this fitting. So when we put the new one in, we have to play with it until it's actually showing the same thing as this thing. And then once we start the car, hopefully it will start, then we're gonna able to adjust this one with a timing light to make sure we see those marks properly lined up with the stationary mark. That's gonna be the timing after that. I got it prepped with some assembly lube on the gears and also over here, so it's ready for installation. The orientation is important, so the vacuum advance facing this way, pretty much flat, and this rotor is facing that way towards this little new fitting. So this is the orientation what we need to observe. Now that we oriented and ready for everything, now we can start removing this bolt here, which holding down the unit. And once that screw came out, that holder came out, we can just basically pull this whole thing out. And see, if as I lift it, the rotor will turn a little bit. See, that's what we're gonna have to play with to make sure that when it gets back in, that rotor will pointing exactly towards this fitting. Well, I pulled the old one out, really nicely came out, and now I'm having a hard time putting this new one back in because it's not oriented properly. I'm gonna have to, it's just one gear, one teeth off, because it's pointing this way, not pointing that way. So I need to move it up a little bit, move it towards this way, and hopefully it will fix itself. Actually, you're gonna be able to adjust it just enough, but this is not how it's supposed to be, so I want to make sure it goes back the same way as it was before. Well, it wasn't an easy fight, but it went in. So now it's oriented the way I want it to be, and it's gonna be perfect. So I can put that little securing bolt back in, and I'm not gonna tighten it too much, just until it's actually barely holds it, so I can still adjust on it once the car starts. I've tightened it up, that bolt, until it's actually still able to move, but not easily, so I can actually adjust it and it will stay over wherever I adjusted it to. So it's not over tightened, but not all that loose either. So now we can start putting the hose on it, you know, that vacuum hose. Actually, never mind, we don't put the vacuum hose on until we set up the timing on it first. As you see, this cap only goes on one way. There is a little pin in it which will aligns it, and then the number one gonna be there. So now once I click it back on, I'm gonna be able to migrate the wires over. I always just move or migrate over one at a time, so started with the one, and then here comes the next one, and then so on, going around in circle, so I would not get any confusion set in. When you have a very used cap, you might want to actually move these a little bit sideways before you start pulling it up to make sure they don't stick. And you just simply just pull it up and then push it on the next one. But this thing will have to go in the middle and then pushing it on until it clicks, and then the next one. I got everything back together, all the wires are connected. The vacuum advance is not connected, because then if we would accidentally have some vacuum go into it when it's and the engine is cold, it will change the values, so we're gonna leave that out. I put the air filter back on, and now we're gonna have the timing light out, and we're gonna try to start it, see if it starts, and we're gonna look down there and then see where the timing is. That mark is, it's I think I'm gonna put it at 5 degrees, and then I'm gonna move it until that timing mark meets up with that stationary mark, and then we can tie down the distributor. This is a very basic, simple timing light. There is like a strobe at the end, if you see that light, and then the idea is you put this one on the number one spark plug, and it points towards the plug. There's an arrow there which shows you which way the plug is, and then you give juice to it, plus and minus, and then once the engine is running or someone cranks it for you, then you can just hold it there, turn it on, and then it just show you when it's firing on the number one cylinder, and then you can adjust the distributor accordingly. Let's see how it starts. It's a little bit off. Let's try to adjust on it. This engine runs like shit, and it sounds like there's an exhaust leak on it, and it feels like it's coming from there. So it looks like I got a carburetor base gasket is leaking, so it's, I don't know, that something is up here. So I'm gonna have to address that, but the good news is the ignition is fine. Ignition is already all set up nicely. Well, I found the gaskets at Napa, but they have to special order it, so it's gonna be here like tomorrow or sometime. So now the car actually works enough to be able to park it in the garage. I don't want to mess with it out here. What's up, guys?
Hello. Peter.
There's Chuck. Danny. Did you get my stuff?
You got your stuff.
All right. Cool. That's what the Mercury needs. And this thing. Cool. Well, let's see if this dinosaur willing to go inside the garage or not. I hope it will. Well, I'm gonna turn the camera off and I'm gonna try to make it in the garage with it. Well, it wasn't easy, but finally it came inside, so now we can start working on it. I'm thinking I'm just gonna remove that PCV housing on it under the carburetor, make it easier, and then see if it improves the conditions here. It's not the easiest looking setup here, so we gotta take a few of these things off. First this vent line, then these sort of vacuum lines, and then on the other side I already disconnected the throttle linkage. It comes off of here, and also I removed the kickback shifter kickback, and then I'm gonna take off the fuel line, and then this big vacuum port in the back, and then we can take the carburetor off. I got everything disconnected so I can start taking off these nuts what holding the carburetor on. Easy peasy. Ooh, there's one more thing I didn't disconnect, and this is this pipe here, that heat riser pipe that needs to come off too. All right, it's off, and looks like I see the problem already. All right, so here's the carburetor, and if you look at the carburetor gasket over there, it just totally disappeared. No more. You see this one? Ooh, I'm surprised it was even running. All right. So if you can see, this is the PCV corner here, or EGR corner. I'm sorry, I said the wrong word. EGR, exhaust gas recirculation. Yeah, it's moving a little bit. I got to take this piece off. I'm gonna be a little screwdriver action, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna leave this whole thing off. I don't really need it. And there is a hole where it comes up here. I think I'm gonna JB weld it shut and then call it a day. So here's what it looks like. This is just a plate what's been put there, and this is where the exhaust coming up, and it goes around and it heats up the whole plate, or half of the plate I would say. So it was leaking out there. This gasket is non-existing at the bottom either, so the exhaust gas actually went inside the intake manifold, so there's a double whammy. So the only way to do this is to somehow do something with this hole where the exhaust gas coming up. So we'll have to think about it for a second. I don't think I can come up with any good idea how to plug this hole properly so it wouldn't get hurt afterwards. Maybe I could drill or tap it somehow and put a big bolt in it and then cut it. I don't know. I'm probably just gonna clean this whole place up and put the original part back in. I got the gaskets, so it's probably would be the easiest way to do that. Well, the first part was easy. That was the EGR part, the plate. But the next one's gonna be a little bit more tricky. So I put a little bit of put paper towels in it to plug up the holes, and I'm gonna start scrubbing it with some sort of razor blade and wire brush and all kind of stuff. I'm really concerned about the part where it was leaking out. So if you see on that rear bolt, it's all kind of dirty, so I really need to make sure I clean that up right. Well, I cleaned it all up real nicely, so now I can start removing these paper towels. So supposedly the dirt what I put in, it will come out with it. It looks like it's made out of a pretty good material. It's all got metal in the middle. It says top front, so that will go on this way. So I guess we're ready to put it back together. Put this EGR plate on it, and now here's the other gasket which can go on top, and that's the heat insulator, and then we can put the carburetor on finally. I cleaned this up too, that surface, and then you can see the idea is that you're driving around with the smaller holes, the primary, and then when you really step on it, then everything opens up. All the 4 valves will open up. So now that it's all clean, I can put that back on. I've tightened down the nuts. I was very careful to first just barely tighten it, and then go in opposite direction all the time, and then a little bit more. When it's all settled down, then I tighten it. You got to be careful not to over tighten it. As you see, I'm using this really small little wrench ratchet, so make sure it's not going to be over tightened. And now you're gonna reinstall everything else what I pulled off of it earlier. Well, I put everything back: the float bow ventilator, vacuum, heat riser, vacuum, big vacuum on the back, little vacuum on the EGR valve, and on the other side I got the kick down connected. I a little bit greased it up, and then I installed the throttle cable with the cruise control. The other vacuum for the vacuum advance is in there. Also, I cut a little piece off for the fuel line, so to make sure that I have a good connection, so I cut that piece off, and I think it's ready to start. Let's see what happens. Wow, this sounds a lot better. Let's actually have low RPM. Of course it's a lot better. Haha, perfect. I can't believe it. I got the car back. Nice. I have this little electromagnet that sits here, and then when you turn on the AC, it's supposed to push the gas for you just a little bit, and then to keep the RPM a little higher, but this thing fall apart, so I'm gonna need to find another one. I removed it from here, and then I'm gonna do a little research. Hopefully I can find one. The only problem I have now is that the idle is really too low, and then it quits. So I need to raise the idle. The idle screw is over here. It's hiding right over there. I don't know how much you can see it, but it's right there. So that's the idle screw I need to adjust once the engine is running. Now the question is, what does it do when I put it in gear? So we're gonna put it in gear under load and see what happens then. Perfect. I think we fixed the car. All right. Well, thank you for watching. See you guys next Friday with something else. Bye.